Hi, Deidre. Good morning, good evening. How are you?
Exactly. Good every part of the world. It's morning here for sure.
Great. Welcome to the podcast. And thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast. And I'm really glad that you could come on, spare some time for us. And I'm so glad for what you're doing for the community.
I
It's
feel the
amazing.
same about you. Feel the same about you, and excited to get to share some information for your community. I hope it's valuable. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise. So let's get started with our conversation. So I wanted to ask the first question that how did you start your journey in information security?
Sure, absolutely. I have a story that's pretty rare in that I'm a sociology, criminal justice double major and was going to get into criminal law. And I realized that that wasn't something I wanted to be a part of. I answered a little ad in the paper that said, "Can you think in your feet?" and ended up getting into technical staffing right out of college. And that brought me into the tech community from a sales perspective, and I did very well in that industry for a long time. And the people I worked for had founded Rapid7, and Rapid7's a public
Mhm.
security software company. Yep. And so it was in its infancy, and they asked me to join Rapid7 as the VP of sales and take my experience from staffing into software sales. And it was through that in 2007 that I got exposed to the cybersecurity community. And boy, did it just fit me based on being a sociology, criminal justice major. I find the industry fascinating. And, um, and from there, I really realized that the industry was suffering in career development and staffing, and I have a lot of experience in that. And so I founded my organization, CyberSN, 5 years ago to solve the talent search, job searching problem that we have, particularly here in the US, although I believe it's an international problem. And I have a cybersecurity team. I have an apps team. I have a software team. I have all of the functions that anybody would have in owning and running an organization. And so I continue to get even closer to the community through what I'm doing today. And my story is even rarer in that I didn't come from the technical road, right? My journey has not come through the technical ranks, and yet I have many brilliant technologists who love and respect working for me. And so that's really the main message I like to get to all genders, but certainly women, to say that there's many paths to getting into cybersecurity. And that's why I published the 35 job categories with over 111 titles, so that folks can really understand the vastness, and also understand that you can move in between different types of roles. So that's how I got here. That's a lot. Are you there still? Uh-oh. Did I lose you?
No, no, no. I'm here. So that's really great because your journey has all the curves, and it's really great that you have people around who talk security. So it's all different career. What inspired you the most in this whole journey? What one thing that inspired you the whole in this journey?
I love working with people, and hence the sociology, sort of passion. And I believe that today's economy, certainly in the last even 20 years, we've become a service industry, in that we must work as teammates to really be successful. And so I've found that the relationships that I've created at work are so valuable and also rewarding. So for me, it's been the relationships and, you know, the nice, easy win-win for me on that, because I enjoy that, is that skill of team building and team work is the number one coveted skill today in all professions, and absolutely in cybersecurity, where many people don't understand the language, many people are afraid of the topic, and so cybersecurity professionals must be excellent communicators. And so, and team workers and team players. There's so many people they must interact and persuade and what have you. So for me, I really lucked out in that I enjoy teamwork and that I was a bit naturally good at it, if you will. And those relationships that you build, at least my experience, and I've watched of others, they're special, they're family.
Yeah, truly. When you work with people, they become your family. And
That's right. That's right.
yeah,
If you've got the right perspective, if you are willing to be accountable to your own, you know, results and take them, you know, seriously and respect other people's times. You know, just because you're on a team doesn't mean it's going to be a great experience. And really, it's up to us as individuals to own that experience and own the fears that we can, you know, come to us when we're engaging others, particularly you know, women, you know, who, you know, have been traditionally trained to not speak up or not, you know, not say what they're thinking. And so it's really about us breaking through that to create these relationships that do create family. And so I wish that for everybody. So, you know, we spend more time working than anything else.
absolutely true. The people, true, the people around us make a lot of difference. And if you have good people around you and who can make you feel comfortable, it goes a long way. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and I know that you have been working a lot with Brain Babe. So, what inspired you to create the Brain Babe?
Yeah, so Brain Babe was born a little over 4 years ago when RSA here in the US, the big conference itself, put out a memo saying, you know, hey, we really need to look at this booth babe situation. And booth babe is a term here in the US that refers to vendors in the conference events having, you know, women dressed scandalously who are not working for the company, or maybe they are, but they certainly aren't there to, you know, speak what their services and their products are. They're there to attract the men because, you know, 90% of who's there is men, to get to scan their badges and what have you. Uh, and so RSA put out a memo about, like, let's not dress women like that. And my team brought me the memo, and I read it and I said, oh, this is good. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. And I said, but let's not just ban clothing. Let's train their brains. You know, I was fortunate enough for the industry to take me in and train me. Why can't we train these women instead of, you know, not allowing them to participate? It's not as if they don't want to have great jobs and learn. So I said, let's make them brain babes. And so we went to RSA wearing shirts that had booth babe crossed out and brain babe on it. And next thing I know, I was keynoting about how rare my story is. I sort of hadn't realized it. I worked for the same entrepreneurial men for 21 years across 3 different companies. They're very special in their organizations and how they train and groom people. And I was definitely took advantage of that and worked hard. And so, you know, I thought, let's let's wear these shirts. And so as I'm keynoting, I'm, getting more and more, confronted how rare my story is. And oh my gosh, there's so many women out here. I need to help. And so I founded brainbabe.org. And first thing we did is we staffed conferences with students of all genders. So we took out the gender part of it. And it was awesome because not just Brain Babe, but there's some other firms like Equal Respect that was out there
Mhm.
also having the same conversations. And so really the Booth Babe situation went away fast. Companies started to own it. They didn't want to be associated with that. And they are now sending people that work in the organization, and it's a different experience at events. It's just super cool. And so as the need for students to work conferences went away, we transitioned into holding one-day events. One of them is called Day of Security, where we have female instructors come in for the day and train on different aspects of cybersecurity to show women the different types of jobs that are out there and to be inspired and hear the story of these women. And it's free and it's all day, and it's a lovely event, and we're continuing that event. We've had 5 or 6 of them now all over the US. We'll be um, taking them, and that what we do in those events beyond the training is then, as women want to get into cybersecurity, we're helping them find their path of how to get in. So depending on what role they want to do, we can offer them different types of training institutes, support not-for-profits, scholarships, things like that. We're sort of the conduit to, how do you get in the US? And I must clarify that today we're only US. I wish we were more, but today it's the US.
Right. No, no, but it's so good, especially even though it says brain wave, which is just specifically when we think about it, it's just women, but it's so inclusive. And when you're talking about students, we cannot differentiate with any gender. Students are students. And when we specifically talk about spreading awareness, it has to be for everyone, be it students of college, of school students, like we've been talking about training middle school students, right? So
Yeah.
it's so important, and I'm so glad that that the people are coming forward, people like you are coming forward and taking such decisions for the community, and it's commendable.
Oh, thank you. It really was a very interesting moment in my life to be in my very early 40s and realizing how different everybody else had it.
Mm.
And that really just changed my life forever. I was pretty sheltered in that my family, I'm the queen. There was no inequality between my brothers, and even school felt that way to me. And then of course employment did, because of who I went to work for and how wonderful they are. And so, my gosh, what a rare story, I realized in waking up a bit. So I'm committed to helping, and it's really important for all genders to hear these stories, and yet for women to really have role models is still just as important. And I get that. I really get that.
Yeah, totally relatable, because
Yeah.
the situations are there in India also, and we are trying to grow infosec girls here. We are spread across multiple locations. Now it says
Yep.
girls, but yeah, it has to have, when we consider about students, it has to have all. So it's great. So another question related to this: what do you feel about women in programs? Because we all are supporting diversity programs. So there are certain words mm, that are in talk, we should say, like women in cloud, women in security, women in AppSec. Even I'm part of it, but I wanted to take your inputs. What do you feel about such programs?
Oh, I think they're absolutely necessary. It's it's really interesting. So when I started Brain Babe, I said we will never have an event where there aren't a lot of men at our event. And I always wanted 50% minimum, or 50-50. And the reason I say that is that the men are running the show. And so if the men aren't in the room, well, what are we how far are we going to get? And that the men really needed to be a part of solving this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I really stuck to that for about 3 years. And it was only until my team really said, they wanted to do this. And of course, if they really want to, I want to support them. And that was our first day of security, where it's only women.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed up to that event, and oh my gosh, I completely didn't get how powerful, because I hadn't been in that situation before, even myself, it is to sit in a room of 300 women, and 80 of them being leaders in cybersecurity, and then spend the day with them and hear them and the keynotes and the panels and the classes. I was inspired and felt just even more confident, as if I even needed that. And I watched these women that came who aren't in my position or the positions of the instructors, and they changed from a bit timid and unsure to confident and excited and having a plan and having made relationships with others that they feel will be long term, and they're super excited about that. And oh man, I saw that, I experienced that, I shall say, for 12 hours, and I will never stop supporting that.
Yeah.
And I also still hold the events that have the 50% men, and I'm still in the conversation with the men. And so I think that these groups are really important. I do think that if you want men to come to your events,
Mm-hmm.
then the name, could use work.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brain Babe, we were able to do it because I know so many men. My clients are men,
Yeah.
there are a bunch of them around, so I could get them. And yet, of course, the name made it a little bit challenging. In fact, the name over the last couple of years has
Mm-hmm.
become more challenging for me, in that, since #MeToo, more people willing to sort of get in the conversation who are sharing that the word babe really turns them off. And it really broke my heart, in the beginning. And then it was sort of like, well, here's how it came. It's not about we're calling ourselves
Mm-hmm.
babes or anything, that we have to do how we look. And then recently I've just gotten myself to the place of like, you know what? I'm not okay with 20% of the population not liking the name, because I want everybody involved. I want to be inclusive. And so we are changing the name as we speak to Secure Diversity, so that there's no feelings of exclusion, whether it be because a name, really provides a bad feeling, like the word babe, or whether it be because men think, oh, I shouldn't go because it's a women's event. And if we don't want the men to go, that's okay. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that, the name can impact it if you want them to come.
Right. Totally with you. And that's the best part, that you explicitly say that it's not just women. We are trying to be inclusive. It's just that it's women driven, diversity driven. Volunteers and the speakers are the diversity people, which is really
Yeah,
amazing. So,
yeah.
what is one thing that you feel that strive people towards InfoSec, or if a woman wants to join, or a diversity candidate wants to join InfoSec, what is one thing that can motivate them?
Um, well, it pays more than any other technical job if you're taking the technical path.
Totally with you.
And, as much as we're laughing about it, man, money, protects us from living in places that could be dangerous, to healthcare, to providing education for our families. And one of the things that bothers me most about inequality is inequality of money, when money buys those things. And so, if I had to pick one thing to tell a youngster about why to get involved, well, the money is better than the other jobs. Now, that doesn't mean that you come without passion, but there's 35 job categories. I'm pretty sure that there's a place for everybody, who wants to get in. And I think that's really also the key, is taking the time to really investigate the different jobs. And you can certainly find them on my website. And soon we'll be publishing even more. We'll be publishing sort of the career movements that we see in the marketplace, as well as the salaries, and then sort of the training that's needed for each career path within cybersecurity. But right now, minimally, you can certainly see how the roles and responsibilities are divided and defined and categorized. And so, once somebody chooses that based on a passion they have for the kind of work it would be, I'd say, well, the second thing would be money, or we could flip it. I'm not sure. I just think it's really important that young girls understand how important being financially independent is.
Mm-hmm. Totally with you. I can so relate to it, because when you are financially important, enabled, and you can take your, you can have money to do things on your own. It's important. You don't have to be dependent
Yes.
on anyone, and you are supporting each other, which is good.
Yeah, it's not it's not about anything other than we make powerfully positive, good decisions when we're confident. And when we don't have a way to support ourselves, we're not as confident. And so I know from even my experience of choosing the right partner, that it really, is, I must first be in a confident space of myself to make that choice that could possibly be lifelong, which is what we all want, pretty much, or majority are seeking. So yeah, it's super important to recognize how important money is, and that's what capitalism is a system about building skills to make more money. And so to get involved with that is to understand that too. It's not just a job.
Totally. Yes, that's right. And on the same lines, from all of your experiences with your company, and Brain Babe, when somebody is getting started in InfoSec, what advice would you give?
My advice would be to get involved in a project, whether it be online, open source, the meetups where you can meet some other folks and get involved in a project. It's very, we all complain about job descriptions saying that, entry level, but you need experience, right? And so we still see that all the time. And so really being able to create one's own experience outside of, let's say, employment, really, one, gives more confidence in interviewing, because there is some experience to discuss. It also shows passion, also shows that one's a go-getter. I think it's the number one thing for getting in, is to have projects, or minimally one, that you can share that you've done.
Right. And also, you wanted me.
For roles like sales, right? Staffing, insurance, technical writing, working in customer success in security software companies. Those roles are very important, very strategic to the ecosystem of cybersecurity, and are much less technical. I wanted people to really understand, as you can see in the middle here, the traditional cyber roles that really come from the technical start. The internet started all of this, and so all the technologists needed to protect are sort of in this middle. And if you go to the website and you click on any one of these, you'll see there's anywhere from 5 to 7, 8 titles. So there's different even functions, or excuse me, roles within these functions. And that's really important to understand. And then the third category is me really pointing out there's all kinds of leadership roles. And, you know, really you can go from the non-traditional role, the traditional role, and get into leadership. It is really sort of what the name of the game is from the perspective of growth and opportunity. And that really means having very good communication skills, no matter which other roles you came from, and what we call emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of training on that, but those, sort of leadership roles are really there to be had. We need them to be had. And I believe those roles also are about caring for others. And so anybody that's interested in caring for others and really being responsible for teams and for others' successes, and willing to take accountability even for failures, if you will, on projects, then I really want them thinking about those roles under leadership. And so, yeah, this is what I really recommend people do: spend time studying these roles, both the traditional and the non-traditional, and really, then go out and spend some time on maybe some projects, some open source projects, getting involved in the community, an internship, what have you, and off to the races.
One last question. As a woman working in cybersecurity, what has been one of the biggest challenge that you have faced, and how did you overcome that?
I think the biggest challenge is it's a challenge, and it's a strength. So being a woman, being the only woman at the table a lot, is challenging. It's also, a strength, such that the attention's on, when there's one different, if anything, it stands out, right? And so while that is a challenge and has been a challenge for me, it's also been something I've leveraged. So I learned to take that challenge and turn it into, a very positive tool for me. It is a challenge to be the only, to be sort of the different person in the room, or to be a minority, to be one of a few. And so what I really would love for everybody to hear is that it's also an advantage. There are plenty of lovely men out there who want to support women moving forward. Be bold, be confident, speak up, stand, speak clearly and have a lot to add, and stay bold, because it can be your strength too.
Right. And out of all these roles, do you see any specific position that women generally opt for, and there's any specific role that they don't want to opt for?
Yeah, we do. Well, certainly in the United States, we make it such that, girls aren't thinking about anything technical. It's only very recent that we're starting to see that change, and thank goodness we're seeing it. But, that takes a long time to catch up to the workforce. And so, traditionally, girls in the US have been told don't go into anything technical. And so we still see less women in the technical roles, and we see more women in the compliance, risk, privacy, law, because those roles were promoted, as roles for women more than the others. And so again, thank goodness we're starting to see that change, thanks to programs that are out there like Girls Who Code and Girl Scouts, and just many, schools themselves changing the culture on that. But still, there's less engineers that are security engineers that are women versus privacy or risk or compliance.
Right. So, before you go, I wanted to ask you, where can people reach you?
Yeah, for sure. So